The war had lasted 18 months. In that time, humanity learned what it meant to face extinction. The Valkyrie came from the dark spaces between stars. They were tall creatures, almost 3 meters in height, with hard shells like insects and eyes that reflected no light. They had conquered 47 species before finding Earth. Some of those species now served them as slaves. Others existed only in museum displays, preserved as curiosities. The Valkyrie did not believe in mercy. They believed in efficiency. When their ships first appeared above Earth's major cities, humanity tried to communicate. The Valkyrie responded with fire. Millions died in the first week alone. The governments of Earth united faster than anyone thought possible. But unity could not stop the enemy's superior technology. Human missiles exploded harmlessly against Valkyrie shields. Human ships burned like paper in the cold vacuum of Space. Ambassador Elena Vasquez watched the war from bunkers and command centers. She was 63 years old. With gray hair she refused to die and eyes that had seen too much death. Before the war, she had spent her career building bridges between nations. Now she spent her days counting the dead and wondering if humanity would survive another month. 3 colony worlds went silent. The orbital stations around Earth burned and fell. The Valkyrie pushed deeper into human territory with each passing week. Military commanders spoke in quiet voices about acceptable losses and strategic retreats, but everyone knew the truth. Humanity was losing. Humanity was dying. Then, on a cold Tuesday morning, everything changed. A Valkyrie diplomatic vessel appeared at the edge of the solar system. It broadcast a simple message in perfect English. We wish to discuss peace. The reaction among human leadership was immediate and divided. Some celebrated, believing salvation had arrived. Others suspected a trap. A few argued that humanity should reject the offer and fight to the last breath rather than submit to alien rule. Ambassador Vasquez said nothing during the first emergency meeting. She sat in her chair and listened to the arguments flying across the room. Presidents and generals and scientists all shouted their opinions. Fear made them loud. Hope made them desperate. When the room finally fell silent, all eyes turned to her. I will go, she said simply. I will meet with them and hear their terms. The negotiations took place on a neutral station called Pax Concordia, built decades ago for meetings between human nations. Now it served a different purpose. Vasquez traveled there with a small team of diplomats and translators. She wore her best formal clothes and practiced her smile in the mirror until it looked genuine. The Valkyrie delegation arrived in a ship that dwarfed the station. Their leader was called High Commander Zethral, a creature whose shell had turned white with age. Through a translation device implanted in its throat, it spoke of peace and prosperity. It spoke of mutual benefit and shared futures. It spoke of ending the bloodshed and beginning a new era of cooperation. Vasquez listened to every word. She nodded at the right moments. She asked thoughtful questions. She expressed gratitude for the Valkyrie's wisdom and generosity. Inside, her heart was cold and hard as stone. 3 days before the diplomatic vessel appeared, human intelligence operatives had achieved something remarkable. After months of work, they had finally broken the Valkyrie communication codes. The first decrypted messages painted a horrifying picture. The peace treaty was not real. It was a delay tactic. The Valkyrie fleet had suffered unexpected losses in the war against humanity. Humans fought with a ferocity the aliens had not anticipated. They used tactics that bordered on insanity. They sacrificed themselves in ways that made no logical sense. The Valkyrie needed time to bring reinforcements from their empire's core worlds. They needed time to repair their damaged vessels and resupply their weapons. 18 months. That was how long the peace would last. Then, when humanity had relaxed its guard and celebrated its survival, the Valkyrie would strike. Not a war this time, but an extinction event. Every human world would be attacked simultaneously. Every man, woman, and child would be eliminated. The Valkyrie had decided that humanity was too dangerous to enslave. Humans would be erased from existence, their cities turned to glass, their history forgotten. Vasquez knew all of this as she sat across from High Commander Zethral. She knew that every word of peace was a lie. She knew that the alien smiling at her through its translator was planning genocide, and she smiled back. The treaty signing ceremony was broadcast across both human and Valkyrie space. Billions watched as Ambassador Vasquez pressed her hand to the document scanner, officially ending hostilities. She gave a short speech about hope and healing. She thanked the Valkyrie for their mercy. She promised that humanity would honor the agreement with all its heart. High Commander Zethral made its own speech, full of grand words about civilizations learning to coexist. Watching the footage later, human analysts noted something interesting. The alien's body language showed subtle signs of contempt. It believed it was speaking to a defeated species too foolish to recognize its own doom. After the ceremony, Vasquez returned to her shuttle. Her hands were steady as she strapped into her seat. Her face was calm as the vessel pulled away from Pax Concordia. Only when she was alone in her private cabin did she allow herself to breathe. She opened a secure communication channel to Earth Command. General Marcus Chun's face appeared on the screen. He looked 10 years older than he had at the start of the war. "It's done," Vasquez said. "And you're certain about the intelligence? The decrypted messages?" "I sat across from that creature for 6 hours, Marcus. I watched it lie to my face with perfect confidence. It thinks we're already dead. It thinks this treaty is just a formality before the slaughter." Chun nodded slowly. "Then we have 18 months. 18 months to prepare for a war they don't know we're expecting. 18 months to become something they never imagined we could be." Vasquez typed a short-coded phrase and transmitted it through the most secure channel humanity possessed. The message would reach every hidden military installation, every secret research facility, every commander who knew the truth. The message was simple. The clock starts now. On Earth, celebrations erupted in the streets. People wept with joy. Families reunited. The news broadcast spoke of humanity's salvation and the dawn of a peaceful future. But beneath the celebrations, in bunkers and laboratories and shipyards hidden across the solar system, the real work began. Humanity was not going to wait for death. Humanity was going to fight. The Valkyrie had made a terrible mistake. They had given their prey time to prepare. They would never make that mistake again. General Marcus Chen had not seen sunlight in 4 months. His office was carved deep into the ice of Europa, Jupiter's frozen moon. Above him, kilometers of ice blocked all signals from escaping. Around him, 10,000 engineers and scientists worked in shifts that never ended. They called this place the Forge, and it was here that humanity would build its survival. Chun stood before a massive, holographic display showing the current state of human space. Blue dots represented human worlds. Red dots represented known Valkyrie positions. The blue dots were surrounded on all sides. "Show me the fleet projections," he said. The display shifted. Numbers appeared, calculating production rates and training schedules. In 18 months, humanity could build approximately 600 new warships if every factory worked at maximum capacity. The Valkyrie extinction fleet was estimated at over 2,000 vessels. Those numbers would have crushed any normal commander's spirit. Chun simply nodded and began adjusting the production allocations. Humanity could not match the Valkyrie in quantity, so they would match them in quality. Every new human ship would be designed specifically to kill Valkyrie vessels. Every weapon system would target known weaknesses. Every piece of armor would be calibrated to resist known Valkyrie frequencies. The first step was understanding the enemy. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo led the research team studying captured Valkyrie technology. She was a physicist from Nigeria who had lost her husband in the initial invasion. That loss had transformed her grief into focus. She worked 16-hour days without complaint, driven by a cold determination that impressed even the military officers. Their shields operate on a rotating harmonic frequency, she explained to Chun during one of his inspection visits. They shift patterns every few milliseconds to prevent targeting, but the rotation follows a mathematical sequence. If we can predict the sequence, we can time our weapons to strike between rotations. Chun studied the equations on her screen. How long until you crack it? 6 months, maybe 7. We need more processing power. You'll have it. Across human space, the Great Deception unfolded. On the surface, humanity embraced peace with enthusiasm, that bordered on desperate gratitude. Trade delegations traveled to Valkyrie worlds carrying gifts and proposals for cultural exchange. Human tourists visited alien monuments with wide eyes and eager cameras. News networks broadcast stories of friendship and cooperation. The Valkyrie watched with satisfaction. Their observers reported that humans were dismantling military installations, converting weapons factories into civilian production centers, and reducing their fleet to a fraction of its wartime size. Every report was exactly what humanity wanted them to see. The dismantled military installations were decoys, built specifically to be destroyed. The converted factories had simply moved their real operations underground, leaving empty shells for alien inspectors to examine. The reduced fleet had transferred its best ships to hidden locations in asteroid fields and remote moons. What remained visible was old, weak, an expendable. Commander Alexei Volkov coordinated the intelligence operations from a small station orbiting Neptune. His job was simple in concept, but impossibly complex in execution. He had to ensure that every piece of information reaching the Valkyrie painted the same picture. Humanity was broken, grateful, and completely unprepared for another war. The cultural exchange program is working, his deputy reported one morning. Valkyrie observers are attending human festivals and academic conferences. They seem genuinely convinced that we've accepted their dominance. Volkov smiled grimly. Of course they are. They've conquered 47 species. Every one of those species probably begged for peace just like we did. The Valkyrie expect submission because submission is all they've ever received. And if they discovered the truth, then we accelerate our timeline and fight with whatever we have. But they won't discover the truth. Their arrogance is our greatest weapon. The months passed. Summer turned to autumn, turned to winter on Earth, and through it all, humanity maintained its performance. School children learned songs about interspecies friendship. Politicians gave speeches praising Valkyrie wisdom. Artists created works celebrating the new era of peace. Behind closed doors, those same politicians studied military briefings. Those same artists designed camouflage patterns for warships. Those same children's parents worked secret shifts in underground factories. It was the largest conspiracy in human history, and somehow it held together. The secret was compartmentalization. Most humans genuinely believed the peace was real. They celebrated because they had no reason not to. Only a small percentage of the population knew the truth, and those people understood the stakes too well to risk exposure. Admiral Priya Sharma commanded the hidden fleet from a mobile headquarters that never stayed in one location for more than a week. She was a small woman with silver streaking her black hair, and she had lost her entire family when the Valkyrie destroyed Mumbai. That loss had not broken her. It had forged her into something harder than steel. Status report, she demanded during her daily briefing. 412 ships combat ready, Admiral. Another 97 in final construction phases. Crew training is at 82% of target levels. And the new weapon systems? Dr. Okonkwo's team cracked the shield harmonics last week. We're integrating the targeting algorithms into all primary weapons now. Initial tests show a 94% success rate in penetrating Valkyrie defenses. Sharma allowed herself a small smile. 94%. They won't know what hit them. The weapons were just the beginning. Human engineers had developed new propulsion systems that could outmaneuver Valkyrie ships. They had created drone swarms designed to overwhelm alien point defense systems. They had built missiles that could change course mid-flight to avoid interception. Every advantage the Valkyrie had shown during the First War was studied, analyzed, and countered. Humanity learned from its defeats the way it had always learned from its defeats. It adapted. It evolved. It prepared. Ambassador Vasquez continued her role as the public face of human diplomacy. She attended conferences and dinners with Valkyrie officials, always smiling, always grateful, always humble. Each night, she returned to her quarters and studied intelligence reports about enemy fleet movements. They're positioning supply depots along the border, she told Chun during one secure call. Exactly where our intelligence predicted. They're preparing for a sustained campaign. Good. Let them prepare. The more resources they move into position, the more we can destroy when the time comes. How much longer? 2 months until their planned attack date. Our fleet will be ready. Vasquez closed her eyes. 2 more months of smiling at creatures who plan to murder every human alive. 2 more months of pretending to be grateful to her species would-be executioners. She could do it. She had to do it. On the frozen moon of Europa, General Chun reviewed the final production numbers. 623 warships, each one a weapon of revenge. 12,000 trained pilots who knew exactly what they were fighting for. Millions of missiles and torpedoes, loaded with warheads, calibrated to Valkyrie. Weaknesses. It wasn't enough to match the extinction fleet. But it would be enough to surprise it. The Valkyrie had conquered 47 species through superior technology, superior numbers, and the assumption that conquered people stayed conquered. They had never faced a species that smiled while sharpening its knives. The clock continued its countdown, and humanity waited, patient and deadly, for the moment to strike. Dr. Yuki Tanaka had not slept properly in 3 months. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the weapons she was helping to create. She saw the destruction they would cause. She saw the bodies, alien and human alike, floating in the void of space. She was 41 years old, a physicist who had once dreamed of exploring the universe in peace. Instead, she spent her days designing more efficient ways to kill. The work disgusted her. The necessity of it disgusted her even more. Tonight, she stood on the observation deck of Research Station Prometheus, watching the distant stars and wrestling with a decision that could change everything. The encrypted communication device felt heavy in her pocket. She had stolen it from Commander Volkov's office 3 days ago during a routine security briefing. It contained frequencies that could reach Valkyrie intelligence operatives. It offered a way out. UK, I believed in truth. She believed that deception, even necessary deception, corrupted everything it touched. Humanity was preparing to ambush an enemy that expected peace. Yes, the Valkyrie planned to betray humanity first. But did that justify becoming just as treacherous? There had to be another way. If someone told the Valkyrie that humanity knew about their planned attack, perhaps real negotiations could begin. Perhaps both species could step back from mutual destruction. Perhaps honesty could achieve what deception could not. She knew the arguments against her position. She had heard them in briefing rooms and whispered conversations. The Valkyrie had conquered 47 species. They did not negotiate with prey. They did not respect weakness or moral principles. But Yuki could not shake the feeling that by becoming deceivers, humans were losing something essential about themselves. Victory meant nothing if it transformed them into the monsters they fought. Her contact was a Valkyrie intelligence officer named Catherine. She had met it briefly during one of the cultural exchange programs, recognizing something in its eyes that seemed different from the cold arrogance of other Valkyrie. Perhaps she had imagined it. Perhaps she was desperate for any sign that peace was possible. The meeting was set for Nexus Station, a neutral trading hub in the border territories. Yuki had arranged leave time through official channels, claiming she needed rest for medical reasons. No one questioned a burned-out scientist requesting a few days away from work. Commander Alexei Volkov questioned it. He had noticed the missing communication device almost immediately. Security protocols flagged Dr. Tanaka's sudden travel request. Her psychological profile showed increasing signs of moral distress over the past months. The pattern was clear to anyone trained to recognize it. Volkov intercepted her on Nexus Station, stepping out of the shadows as she walked toward the meeting point. Rain fell from the station's artificial weather system, creating pools of reflected light on the metal streets. "Dr. Tanaka," he said quietly, "we need to talk." Yuki froze. Her hand moved toward the communication device, but she stopped herself. Running would only confirm his suspicions. "Commander, I didn't expect to see you here. I imagine not." Volkov stepped closer, his eyes scanning the street around them. "You're about to make a terrible mistake. I'm trying to prevent one. By betraying your species to an enemy that plans to exterminate us." Yuki felt her jaw tighten. "By giving peace a real chance. The Valkyrie don't know that we've discovered their plans. If we tell them, if we show them that we know and we still want to negotiate, maybe they'll reconsider. Maybe they'll see that we're different from the species they've conquered before." Volkov laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Dr. Tanaka, I've spent my entire career studying alien civilizations. The Valkyrie have not changed their methods in 12,000 years. They do not reconsider. They do not adapt their approach based on their enemy's moral appeals. They conquer or they destroy. Those are the only options they recognize. You can't know that for certain. No, but I can know what happens if you're wrong. Billions of people die. Humanity ends. Not in battle, but in slaughter, because we gave away our only advantage." Yuki shook her head. "And if we win through deception, what do we become? Just another conquering species? Just another empire built on lies and blood?" For a moment, Volkov was silent. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. "I understand your position. I even respect it. In a better universe, you would be right. Honesty and good faith would lead to peace. But this is not that universe. The Valkyrie have spent millennia proving that they cannot be trusted. Every species that believed otherwise is now extinct or enslaved, so we have no choice but to become like them. We have a choice to survive. What we do with that survival afterward is up to us." The argument might have continued for hours, but it was interrupted by movement at the end of the street. 3 figures emerged from a side alley, their tall forms and gleaming shells unmistakable even through the rain. Valkyrie. Catherine was among them, but it was not alone. 2 others flanked it, and their hands held weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Yuki's blood went cold. "Catherine? What is this?" The Valkyrie intelligence officer tilted its head, and its translator produced words that sounded almost regretful. "My apologies, Dr. Tanaka. Your offer of information was appreciated, but ultimately unnecessary. We already suspected human treachery. Your approach simply confirmed it. But I came to help you, to stop the war before it begins." "Yes, and that made you a security risk to both sides. Humans who question their leadership are useful for sowing discord. Humans who attempt to contact us directly are loose ends requiring elimination." Volkov had already drawn his sidearm. "How many?" 3 visible. Probably more in the surrounding buildings. They planned this carefully. The Volcari weapons rose. Catherine's voice remained calm. This does not need to be painful, Doctor. Commander, simply stand still, and it will be over quickly. Yuki felt something shift inside her. She had come here believing that honesty could bridge the gap between species. She had believed that somewhere in the Volcari, there was capacity for genuine peace. Catherine had used that belief as a trap. The Valkyrie had never intended to listen. They had never considered her offer as anything but an opportunity to eliminate potential problems. Her good faith, her moral principles, her hope for a better solution, none of it mattered to creatures who saw other species only as threats to be managed. "Get behind me," Volkov said. "I can help. You're not trained for combat. Get behind me and run when I tell you to." What followed was violent and brief. Volkov moved with the speed of someone who had survived a dozen impossible situations. His weapon fired precise bursts that found gaps in Valkyrie armor. He used the rain and shadows to obscure his position. Changing angles constantly, Yuki ran when he told her to, and she did not look back until she reached the evacuation shuttle. Volkov joined her 20 minutes later, bleeding from a wound in his side, but alive. The Valkyrie hunters were not. They sat in silence as the shuttle lifted away from Nexus Station. Finally, Yuki spoke. They were never going to negotiate. Were they? No. Even if I had told them everything. Even if I had given them complete information about our plans. They would have killed me and attacked anyway. Yes. Yuki stared at her hands. The same hands that had designed weapons. The same hands that had almost betrayed her species to an enemy that saw her as nothing but a problem to solve. I was wrong. Volkov nodded. You were. But you were wrong for the right reasons. You believed in something better. That's not a character flaw, Dr. Tanaka. It's just not useful against the Valkyrie. What happens now? Now you go back to your laboratory. You finish your work. And you help us ensure that humanity survives long enough to maybe someday build the peaceful galaxy you imagined. Yuki closed her eyes. The weapons she designed would kill thousands, perhaps millions. But the alternative was the death of everyone she had ever known. She made her choice. "Take me back to Prometheus Station," she said. "I have work to finish." The day of extinction arrived on a Thursday. Admiral Priya Sharma stood on the bridge of the U-East Defiance, watching the tactical display with steady eyes. Around her, officers moved with quiet efficiency, each one knowing exactly what was about to happen. 18 months of preparation had led to this moment. "Admiral," her sensor officer reported, "we're detecting faster-than-light emergence signatures at the predicted coordinates. Multiple contacts. Hundreds of them. Confirmed across all sectors," added the communications officer. "Earth, Mars, New Shanghai, Kepler Colony, all 12 primary worlds report incoming Valkyrie fleets." Sharma nodded slowly. Right on schedule. The Valkyrie had planned their attack with mathematical precision. Their fleets emerged from faster-than-light transit simultaneously around every major human world, appearing in perfect formation like a closing fist. 2,300 warships, each one bristling with weapons capable of shattering cities. The extinction fleet had arrived. On Earth, the celebrations of peace ended abruptly as alien warships filled the sky. People looked up from their normal lives and saw death descending. Panic began to spread through the streets. It lasted approximately 30 seconds. Then the orbital defense platforms activated. Humanity had spent 18 months building weapons in secret. Those weapons now revealed themselves in a symphony of fire and light. Stations that had appeared dormant suddenly blazed with power. Satellites that looked like communication relays opened hidden weapon ports. The moon itself seemed to crack open as massive railgun batteries emerged from underground bunkers. the first wave of Valkyrie ships approaching Earth's atmosphere encountered a wall of destruction they had not expected and could not survive. Admiral Sharma watched the tactical display update in real time. Red dots representing Valkyrie vessels began disappearing across every human world. The aliens had expected to find defenseless targets. Instead, they found a trap. Signal all hidden fleet elements, Sharma ordered. Execute Operation Vengeance. Throughout human space, ships emerged from asteroid fields, from behind moons, from positions so carefully chosen that even Valkyrie sensors had failed to detect them. 623 warships, each one designed specifically to kill Valkyrie vessels, joined the battle. The Defiance led the charge toward the Valkyrie flagship, a massive vessel called the Eternal Dominion. Its shields were the strongest in the alien fleet, its weapons the most powerful. In the First War, human ships had broken against those shields like waves against stone. Now, Dr. Tanaka's targeting algorithms activated. Weapons locked, the tactical officer announced. Shield harmonics calculated. Firing solutions ready. All batteries fire. The Defiance's weapons spoke with a voice of thunder. Plasma beams and kinetic rounds and guided missiles streaked across the void, each one precisely calibrated to the Eternal Dominion's shield rotation. The first volley struck at the exact moment the shields were weakest. For the first time in recorded history, a Valkyrie flagship shields failed under human fire. Across the battle, the same scene repeated itself thousands of times. Human weapons that had been designed through months of careful research found their targets with devastating accuracy. Valkyrie captains who had expected easy prey found themselves facing hunters. The enemy fleet was not helpless. They were still the Valkyrie, masters of 47 conquered worlds. They adapted quickly, adjusting their tactics and fighting back with savage intensity. Human ships died alongside alien ones. The void filled with debris and bodies, and the silent screams of the dying. But the tide had turned. High Commander Zethral watched from the bridge of the damaged Eternal Dominion as its fleet crumbled around it. The creature's compound eyes flickered with something that might have been confusion, might have been fear. "This is not possible," it said through its translator. The humans were broken. Our observers confirmed their weakness. They had no weapons, no ships, no capacity to resist. "High Commander," a subordinate reported, "we are receiving similar reports from all sectors." Human forces were prepared for our attack. They knew the timing. They knew our tactics. They have weapons specifically designed to penetrate our defenses. How? Our communications were secure. Our plans were known only to the highest levels of command. There was no answer. There could be no answer that the Valkyrie would accept. They had spent 12,000 years conquering species through superior planning and overwhelming force. The possibility that prey could outthink them, could deceive them, could prepare a countertrap this, was not something their worldview could accommodate. Admiral Sharma opened a channel to the Eternal Dominion. Her face appeared on the alien bridge's main display, calm and cold. "High Commander Zethral, I am Admiral Priya Sharma of the United Earth Fleet. Your attack has failed. Your fleet is being destroyed. You have one opportunity to surrender and save what remains of your forces." Zethral's translator hissed with fury. "Humans do not give orders to the Valkyrie. We are the masters of 1,000 worlds. You are insects who learn to build ships. We are insects who learn to build ships that kill yours. Look at your tactical display, High Commander. Count your losses. Then tell me again who gives orders to whom." The display showed the truth clearly enough. The Valkyrie extinction fleet had lost over a third of its vessels in the first hour of battle. Human losses were significant but sustainable. The tide was not just turning, and it turned completely. But the war was not over yet. In the border territories, the Valkyrie supply lines came under attack by human strike forces that had been waiting in hidden positions for months. Cargo vessels carrying weapons and fuel and reinforcements exploded one after another. Commander Volkov coordinated the attacks from his mobile command center, watching with grim satisfaction as the enemy's logistics collapsed. "They can't sustain this battle without supplies," he reported to General Chun. "Their ships are running out of ammunition. Their fighters are running out of fuel. Every hour that passes weakens them further." On the Valkyrie homeworld, far from the front lines, another surprise waited. Human ships that had been disguised as merchant vessels revealed their true nature and attacked critical infrastructure. Communication relays went silent. Defense stations burned. The Dominion's leadership suddenly found itself unable to coordinate with its fleets. The attack was not designed to conquer the homeworld. Humanity lacked the forces for that. It was designed to create chaos, to cut the head off the snake while the body still thrashed. Admiral Sharma pressed the attack on the Eternal Dominion. The flagship's shields flickered and died completely. Breaches opened in its hull. Atmosphere vented into space. "High Commander," she broadcast again, "your ship is dying. Your fleet is dying. Your empire is falling. Surrender now, or join them in death." For a long moment, there was silence. Then Zethral's voice came through the channel, stripped of its earlier arrogance. "How did you know? How did you prepare for this?" Sharma allowed herself a thin smile. "You taught us, High Commander. You taught us that peace treaties can be lies. You taught us that trust is weakness. You taught us to smile while we sharpen our knives. We were good students. You deceived us. Yes, just as you planned to deceive us. The difference is, we were better at it." The Eternal Dominion's weapons went silent. Its remaining shields lowered. Across the battle, other Valkyrie vessels began. Following their flagship's lead, the extinction fleet that had come to end humanity instead became humanity's greatest. Triumph. Admiral Sharma watched the surrender signals multiply across her tactical display. Around her, bridge officers embraced and wept with relief. Somewhere in the back of the room, someone began to sing an old Earth anthem. But Sharma did not celebrate. Her family was still dead. Millions of humans were still dead. The price of this victory had been paid in blood and pain and 18 months of lies. She opened a channel to Earth Command. "General Chun, the Valkyrie fleet has surrendered. Humanity survives." "Well done, Admiral. Well done. What happens now?" "Now we ensure this never happens again." The war ended not with a treaty, but with a surrender. Ambassador Elena Vasquez returned to Pax Concordia 3 months after the battle. The station looked the same as it had during the false peace negotiations. Crystal walls catching starlight, elegant corridors designed for diplomacy. But everything had changed. This time, humanity was not begging for mercy. This time, humanity was dictating terms. The Valkyrie delegation waited in the central chamber. High Commander Zethral was not among them. That creature had chosen death rather than face the humiliation of formal surrender. In his place sat the High Regent, an even older Valkyrie whose white shell bore the marks of centuries. Vasquez took her seat across from the alien leader. She was no longer smiling. She no longer needed to pretend. As he no longer needed to pretend. "The terms are simple," she began. "Complete disarmament of all Valkyrie military forces. Permanent human observation posts throughout your empire. Release of all enslaved species currently under your control. Payment of reparations to every world you have attacked over the past century." The High Regent's compound eyes dimmed with something that looked like despair. "These terms are not surrender. They are subjugation. They are consequences. You plan to exterminate our entire species. Every man, woman, and child. Every city, every colony, every trace of human existence erased from the galaxy. Did you expect us to simply forgive and forget? We expected you to be dead. Yes, that was your mistake. The negotiations continued for 12 days. The Valkyrie argued for better terms. They appealed to tradition, to honor, to the practical difficulties of implementing such dramatic changes. Vasquez listened patiently to each argument and rejected each one. On the final day, the High Regent asked a question that had haunted every Valkyrie since the battle. How did you know? Our communications were encrypted with algorithms that have never been broken. Our plans were shared only among our most trusted commanders. How did humanity discover our intentions? Vasquez considered the question carefully before answering. Because we recognized ourselves in you. The High Regent tilted its head in confusion. I do not understand. Humanity has a long history, High Regent. We have not always been peaceful. We have conquered and enslaved and committed atrocities that still shame us. We have smiled at enemies while planning their destruction. We have signed treaties we never intended to honor. She leaned forward, her eyes steady on the alien's face. When you offered us peace after 18 months of war, when you spoke of brotherhood and prosperity while your fleets regrouped, we recognized the pattern. We had used that pattern ourselves countless times throughout our history. We knew what your words meant, because we knew what our own words had meant in similar situations. You are saying that you understood our deception because you are equally capable of deception. More than that, we understood it because we have been both the deceiver and the deceived. We have been the conqueror and the conquered. We have been the predator and the prey. Every trick you tried to use against us, we had already used against each other. The High Regent was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was quieter. In 12,000 years of conquest, we have never encountered a species like yours. Others have been stronger. Others have been more technologically advanced. But none of them understood us. They saw our promises and believed them. They saw our mercy and trusted it. You saw through us completely, because we know what lies look like. We know what false peace looks like. We know what it means when an enemy offers kindness after demonstrating cruelty. And now that you have defeated us, what kind of conquerors will humanity become? It was a fair question. Vasquez had asked it herself many times during the long months of preparation. Humanity had proven it could match the Valkyrie in deception and violence. What would they do with that victory? We will not become you, she said finally. That is the one thing we are certain about. We did not fight for survival just to become another empire of terror. The terms we are offering are harsh, but they are not extinction. We are not going to slaughter your species or enslave your people. Why not? We would have done so to you, because that is the difference between us. We are capable of everything you are capable of, but we choose differently. We lie when we must, and we fight when we must, but we do not take pleasure in cruelty. We do not see conquest as our natural right. We want to build a galaxy where trust is possible, not because species are too weak to deceive each other, but because they choose honesty anyway. The High Regent considered these words. Its ancient eyes studied Vasquez's face as if searching for the lie hidden within her sincerity. And if we do not believe you, if we see your terms as merely a slower form of extinction, then you will learn, over time, that we mean what we say. We will prove it through actions, not words. We will release your enslaved populations and help them rebuild. We will monitor your military to prevent another war, not to dominate you. We will trade with you fairly and judge you by your deeds, not your history. This is not how empires behave. No, it is how partners behave. We hope, eventually, to become partners rather than enemies. But that possibility depends on you as much as it depends on us. The surrender document was signed that afternoon. The High Regent pressed its claw to the scanner, officially ending 12,000 years of Valkyrie dominance. Around the galaxy, word spread that the great conquerors had been conquered in turn, but Ambassador Vasquez did not celebrate. She returned to her quarters and sat alone in the darkness, thinking about everything that had been lost and everything that might yet be built. Dr. Yuki Tanaka found her there. Hours later, Ambassador, the delegation is asking for you. Vasquez did not move. I spent 18 months lying to creatures who planned to kill us all. I smiled at them and pretended to be grateful while we built the weapons to destroy them. I was very good at it. You did what was necessary. Yes, but it changes you, Yuki. The deception becomes part of who you are. I look in the mirror now, and I wonder how much of what I see is real. Tanaka sat down beside her. I understand. I spent those same months designing weapons meant to kill millions. I told myself it was for survival. I told myself there was no other choice. And that was true. But it doesn't make the weight any easier to carry. How do you live with it? By trying to build something better. The war is over. The killing is done. Now we get to decide what kind of future we create. That's not nothing, Ambassador. That's everything. Vasquez looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. In the archives of Earth Command, the decrypted Valkyrie transmissions were preserved as a permanent reminder. They showed every detail of the planned extinction, every calculation of human deaths, every assumption about human weakness. Future generations would study them and learn the lesson humanity had learned the hard way. Trust must be earned. Peace must be defended. And those who offer false friendship should never be surprised when they receive true war. But the archives also contained something else. They contained the records of what humanity did after victory. The freed slaves being helped to rebuild their worlds. The Valkyrie being integrated into a new order based on mutual respect rather than domination. The slow, difficult work of creating a galaxy where trust might someday be possible. Humanity had proven it could be as ruthless as any conqueror. Now it would prove it could be something more. Ambassador Vasquez returned to her duties. There were treaties to negotiate, relationships to build, wounds to heal. The work of peace was harder than the work of war, but it was work worth doing. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, other species watched and wondered. They had seen the mighty Valkyrie fall. They had seen humanity rise from the ashes of near extinction to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. They asked themselves the same question the High Regent had asked. What kind of species was this? What kind of creatures could deceive so completely, fight so fiercely, and then choose mercy over vengeance? The answer was simple, though few could understand it. They were human. And humanity had never been just one thing. They were capable of infinite cruelty and infinite kindness, of devastating war and lasting peace, of the deepest lies and the highest truths. They carried within them every contradiction the universe had to offer, and they had decided, after everything, to choose hope.